Hey there guys, how's it going? Thank you very much for tuning your tube to spread the love, not STDs. This is Storytime Tuesday, a weekly series where I go over a different story in my life and you get to join me on this journey down memory lane. And for today's story, I kind of wanted to start with a topic that kind of hits home just based off of the stuff that's going on recently and just, a kind of like a turning point in my life or a pivotal point in my life. And this is the first ever job that I ever got as a teenager or just in general. So at the age of 16, back when I was in high school, probably like my senior year, I think the end of my junior year, the beginning of my senior year of high school, I knew I needed money. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I needed money. And so I applied for a bunch of different jobs. I applied for every single job that a person my age would apply for. And a lot of them were mainly like, sales associates in stores and the mall and the local mall and, like different places here and there, maybe like a shop down the road or something. And every single job that I applied for rejected me for one simple factor, and that was I did not have any experience on my resume at all. And naturally being so, because at the age of 16, what job was I ever going to work, prior to that? And it's kind of like a whole loophole where it's like, yeah, you're not allowed to work until you're 16, but like when you're trying to look for work at 16, you don't really have any experience under your belt. So what was I really supposed to do? Get a volunteer job at 14? I mean, I know it was a whole mess back then, but I remember that the one job that actually took my application pretty seriously was the job at the local McDonald's in Queens in my old neighborhood. And this isn't just any local McDonald's. There's some history with this McDonald's. This is actually the same McDonald's that my parents met in. I know, it's funny, it came full circle. When my parents immigrated to America, they both got a job at McDonald's. It's pretty sweet because my mom was working the cash register, my father was mopping the floors and cleaning the bathrooms, and they both met. And then I came out. So, that's what happened. And 10, 15 years, so 16 years later, I wanted to apply for a job at that very same McDonald's. Different management, of course, and I think even different ownership. But it was the only place that was willing to take me at the age of 16 without any experience. So I started there. At first, they put me right in the kitchen. I had to make food in the back. I had to learn pretty quickly, actually. I don't know if anyone's ever worked in a fast food place or just any food environment. Things can get pretty crazy when people have to wait for their food. And because it's fast food, you're like on a constant kitchen timer. It almost feels like those like Food Network shows where like, you got 3 minutes to bake this cake, and you just got to like work with a team. And I just remember that like there was no like buffer period where I had to learn and like, like take notes and stuff. Like I was literally thrown in the wolves and like had to pick it up just by seeing somebody else do it. And nobody had patience for me because it was not the environment where people wanted to teach me anything. They were like, if you don't know how to make this on your first day of work, you were useless to me. So I was in the kitchen making food, and I just remember the manager of the store was a Jamaican man named Robert. And I just remembered like I wasn't necessarily exposed to like that level of speech, if for lack of better words, but I just remember being yelled at in like sentences that like had to take me like a minute to process what was said to me. Stuff like, I need you to make the Big Mac. Why you not drop them fries upon the aisle? Like stuff like that, where it's like, I'm just standing there like, what did you just say? Like, what? I remember one time I came in, I didn't have my hat on, and he just stops me at the door. He's like, hey, where you at? I was like, I'm right here. What are you talking about? He's like, no, where you at? I was like, sir, I'm literally standing right in front of you. He was like, no, you at. You have to put on your hat upon your head when you come through the door every time. I'm sorry if I butchered the Caribbean accent, but he was telling me I didn't have my hat on me. I know, it's pretty messed up, but as I said, like it's just, there were so many like experiences that like I just had to walk away from with that job, and I think that like the biggest thing that I was able to take from working at McDonald's was how they made their food. It's not that the food is necessarily disgusting. It's pretty bad, but it was the process and just the understanding of how food was made, and in certain occasions how little care was put into the creation of that food, especially during like really busy rushes, you know, and even like at downtimes where there's like literally nobody in the store. But like just understanding that there were so many times where literally people would half cook something like a burger, put it on a sandwich, and just serve that to somebody. And mind you, if you're eating at McDonald's, chances are you're probably not checking the food that you're eating. It's just plain and simple. You know, you don't think twice about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some people who literally check everything. And I've had people be like that SpongeBob episode where the guy that had the pickles under his tongue would come back 2 or 3 times within the same 10 minutes, tell us that we made it wrong, and like cuss us out in like the loudest world star hip hop type of scenario. And I just remembered so many like scenarios like that, you know. And I think that the process of, you know, like the fact that everything had to be done on a time, you know, on like a fast time frame, and like just, you know, like the fact that like there was so much put into like literally preparing food in under 2 minutes, you know. And I just remember like they used to give us free lunches from obviously the McDonald's menu. There was like probably like my second week there, I just stopped taking those free lunches because I was just like, man, this is pretty disgusting. And mind you, they didn't give us a fridge or anything. They couldn't, like, I lived down the block from it, so I just went home for my lunch breaks. But yeah, there were just times where I just didn't want to eat the lunch because it was just like the amount of preparation, you know. Like, mind you, like there are certain things that like I don't understand how people can ingest this stuff. Like the way that sweet tea is made, you literally have to take a whole bag of sugar, not just like I'm talking about like these like wholesale Costco sized bags of sugar, dump it in a huge big bucket, put a lot of tea in it, and just stir it for like 2 minutes. And sometimes people won't even go through the extra step of stirring the sweet tea. So which is why if anyone's ever ordered sweet tea and wondered why sometimes it's really sweet and sometimes it doesn't taste like anything at all, that's why. Because if they don't stir it on the top of it, you're probably getting the tea that tastes like crap, and at the bottom of it, you're probably getting the tea that literally has grams and grams and grams of sugar in it. Just a pro tip there. I wouldn't drink the sweet tea. The burgers, mind you, and this is just the funniest thing that I've ever had to tell somebody. You don't actually flip burgers at McDonald's. Like, that's like the one thing that you don't do when you work at McDonald's. What you do is you put the burgers on a grill, and then you have this thing that comes down towards the top of the grill and just presses it for about a couple minutes. I mean, depending on, you know, what type of burger it is. If it's like a regular, you know, Big Mac or like a, you know, regular cheeseburger, it takes like 90 seconds. If it's like a quarter pounder or like, you know, an Angus beef thing, it takes like 5 minutes, you know. So it's like you don't actually flip burgers when you work at McDonald's. You just let the grill do its job. Having said that, you still got to scrape the grill, and you still, at the end of the day, you got to empty the grease trap. And that was, my friends, probably one of the more disgusting things that I've ever had to experience, because not only are those grease traps disgusting from all the oil that's been building up throughout the entire day, it stinks and it's heavy. Needless to say, the first time I ever did it, I underestimated how heavy that grease trap was. And I kind of dropped some of it on the floor. Not only did I have to mop it and clean it up, I got my black Air Forces messed up that day. Yeah, it was insane. It's taught me a lot of things. And the worst part about it is every single night that I would come home smelling like McDonald's every night. And I'd have to take a shower. Sometimes I would work late. Sometimes I would work until midnight. And I'd have to come home, take a shower, and then get ready for school the next day. You know? But the things that I did to make money back then. And I think that the biggest issue with the fact that I was working in my local McDonald's, like in the neighborhood that I lived in, because mind you, there was no way in hell I was going to travel to work at a McDonald's. No, it had to be in my neighborhood. But because it was, a lot of my friends back then would come by that McDonald's just because it was, you know, the neighborhood McDonald's, and they would recognize me. And it literally felt like one of those like cartoons or like those, I guess those anime shows that you watch where it's like literally you got the person working at the grill, and you got the school groups coming in and stuff, you know, like the cliques coming in and be like, hey, I know you, and you know, they'll get recognized, and like I have to pretend like I don't hear them because I gotta, you know, keep it professional and continue to do my job and stuff. And you know, sometimes I used to get laughed at, and you know, I mean, it's all water under the bridge now. It's totally fine. But yeah, it was kind of like a learning experience for me. I learned a lot of things. I learned responsibility. I learned how to work as part of a team. I got a lot of experience. I also learned how not to get burnt and not to drop grease all over the damn place. And within 6 months of me starting there, I was offered a promotion from regular kitchen crew to crew chief. The raise was literally a quarter an hour. So I went from earning $7.25 to $7.50 an hour and got double, if not triple, the amount of responsibility that I did when I started. But don't worry, it was all part of the process of becoming a manager at McDonald's, because let's just be honest with ourselves. Everyone who works at McDonald's wants to be a manager at some point. Of course not. So I took that as like the hugest slap in the face. And within a couple weeks of that, I turned in my uniform, said I was not going to take this job anymore, ended up working at my local mall for an extra $1.50 an hour with half the amount of responsibilities that I had to deal with in McDonald's. And that kind of leads to kind of the purpose of the story that I wanted to get into. And I know that this is kind of a controversial topic right now, just with everything that's been going on with, you know, the fast food labor strikes, and you know, the desire for a lot of people wanting to earn $15 an hour. And I want to say that I can justify it based off of my personal experiences. And I think it's pretty simple for someone who's never worked at a McDonald's or for any job at that level to not want to justify that. I understand it. Trust me, I do. But I've personally experienced these things, and you know, I think that the biggest takeaway from my time working there was it didn't matter who I was treated just as equally as anybody else in that kitchen, in a bad way. There were times where I was the youngest person in the kitchen. There were times where I was the most educated person in the kitchen. But it didn't matter, because as long as I was in that kitchen, I was treated with the same level of disrespect that an immigrant worker was treated, that a high school dropout was treated, that anybody working at McDonald's was treated with, from management, from customers, from other coworkers there. And it got me to learning that literally the worse it's just funny. You get treated worse based off of how little you make. And the more you make in life, the better you get treated for some reason. I get it. I totally understand it. You know, people work hard to get where they are in life. People work hard to aspire to do more and work more. You know, the goal should be to get a higher paying job that treats you better. But I think that what I've learned working at McDonald's is that not everyone has that opportunity. It's easy for someone like myself, or like you watching this, or any Joe Schmo to say, yeah, it's pretty easy to get a job. You shouldn't have to make $15 an hour flipping burgers and serving them out. But I don't look at it that way, because everybody that I've met working at McDonald's, working with me, those are people too. You know, those are the same hardworking people that, you know, that I was. You know, these are the same people that were looking to, you know, for whatever reason. They had to make money for their families. They had to make money for themselves. They had to make money just for the sake of making money. But if you are working at McDonald's, and if you have to literally put yourself through the indignity that you have to go through working at McDonald's to literally make $7.25 an hour, I sympathize with you. I feel bad for you. And trust me, if those people had a choice to be better, to work at a better place, I'm pretty damn sure they would take it. But chances are they don't have that opportunity. So maybe $15 an hour isn't reasonable. Maybe $15 an hour is too much. But you know what? $7.25 is too little. And I'm not saying that, you know, we should pay them $15 an hour and not pay anybody else anymore. What I'm saying is, I don't think that anyone working at McDonald's enjoys working there for minimum wage. They do it because they have to. They do it because they don't have a choice. And if it's impossible for them to make a living off of doing it, just based off of what I've experienced in my less than 1 year working there, it's pretty insane that, you know, we can justify just having people not make anywhere near a living wage. You know, hey, you don't have to raise their salaries or their wages to $15 an hour. Just make the cost of living lower. That's all. Anyways, guys, that was Storytime Tuesday. I'm sorry I went on a whole rant towards the end of that, but it was, like I said, it was just something that's just very passionate to me and just something that I have had to deal with myself. So if you guys have your own opinion about it, or if you have a story about your own first job, let me know about it in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you guys did for your first jobs and where you guys learned responsibility and how long did you last there? How much did you make? What did you walk away learning from that job? I'll see you guys in the next one.